First of all, Matrons and Madams is part of a trilogy.
Oh. Okay.
And so it will, then it's covering the First World War and the aftermath, and then it will cover the Second World War, and it will go on into the 70s. And and I'm well into the second book, so you don't just sit there on your laurels with that. But within that trilogy, I hope to show that the extraordinary effect, the long-lasting impact of war on a family. And if you think that in war people die, so if you think of fatherlessness and you think of economic hardship and then relocation, which is the case there, but very often they relocate, either they go from a big house to a small house or they actually go to another country for better opportunities. I hope to show that this lasts over 3 generations. It's not to the 4th generation, which in my case would be our grandchildren, that you don't have still this war impact influencing the way people feel and the decisions they make in their life.
Now, why would you want to explore that? What is the...
Well, I guess the triggering factor was the fact that as I was going through, by then both my mother and my grandmother had passed away. They were dead. And so I found 12 letters of commendation for my grandmother, extolling her capacity and her expertise as a lady superintendent of the Galt Hospital in Lethbridge. I looked at all these letters and I said, why would she need these letters coming from politicians, businessmen, and doctors? Why did she need to have people telling that she was such a very good and very competent and obviously disciplinarian matron of a hospital? And so I decided to go to Lethbridge. I booked a flight and off I went, and I met the Lethbridge archivist and Greg Ellis. And Greg Ellis, we had some chats, and Greg Ellis gave me all the board notes. There's more than 300 pages over 10 years, over a decade. But in March 1929, 2 pages have been pulled out. Now, Mr. Dutton was the secretary, lovely man. I'd seen correspondence with my grandmother, but those 2 pages were pulled out. And I thought, okay, something has happened. That was the start of my research, which I loved. I'd done my PhD, so. And then I talked to, which was an extraordinary opportunity, several times, because I flew out many times, to Helen Hope, who had been a student in 1929 of my grandmother. So I could tell she didn't quite want me to know that there was something she didn't want to say. So well, that was just enough, that was the challenge. So with the board notes, then I went through. Yeah. And eventually you could see what was happening, and that comes out in the book. In the board notes, it's absolutely clear, never would have known that my grandmother was asked to come from England to start up the first venereal disease clinic. Alberta had the largest incidence. First of all, they had the largest per capita enlistment for the war. Okay. They also had the largest incidence of venereal disease, and Lethbridge was the highest in the province.